Spoken to you, we found out that this car had a problem with the caliper that moved because it didn't have this particular brace in it. And now that I put the brace in it, and now you see that it has very little movement, just like the other side when I showed you. Now you see the importance of this particular brace. It doesn't allow this caliper to go up and down or being pinched in any kind of way, so when you're driving down the road, your brake caliper doesn't decide that it's going to automatically pop off for some reason. Some weird thing will happen to it. Okay, so now it won't happen.
So I have a question for you. Why would somebody try to fix my car and not do this?
There's a difference between mechanics, and some mechanics don't realize that the engineers have put this here for a reason. In some cars, these are called anti-squeal clips. So somebody just thinks it's an anti-squeal clip, wouldn't put it back on.
What is actually an anti-squeal clip?
It keeps the brake pad back here. When it depletes, it'll hit against metal to metal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most manufacturers put a little clip there, so when it scrapes the rotor, you know that the brake pad is bad.
So is that when you start hearing the grinding?
Yeah,
or the
well, when
clamping?
the grinding happens when the pad goes away and it hits metal to metal against this rotor here. See, in that rotor is what stops. This is what stops your car.
Right.
Okay, so when this pad goes away that it's working with, when it's running down the road, it's just running. If there's no pad back there, it'll grind metal to metal.
So explain to them again why this little small piece that looks like a coat hanger is so important.
The whole importance of the engineers to put that there is because Ford didn't put a slide clip at the top here. See how the manufacturer didn't do that?
Yeah, see.
And so what happened is that they had to design something so that this caliper doesn't move back and forth or up or down when you're trying to drive the car. Okay, so this is designed to hold the caliper in place so that no movement or no popping sounds or no grinding sounds are going to come from this, as long as you have a pad, a brake shoe here that's good, and there's one on either side of it.
And now that you know this is the 1999 Ford Contour, what do you think about the brakes that I have on the car that I've got done?
I say that
ago?
these brakes are fine. At 80,000 miles, these brakes are good.
Well, actually, they were changed 3 years ago, so these are semi-new brakes.
So, and they still have quite a lot of meat on the pad themselves. So, and we're not worried about that.
For an individual that doesn't know exactly what they're looking at, how do they know if their brake pads are going low?
This is your actual pad here. You have to see, okay? And if you can see back here where my screwdriver is touching, yes. I'm touching the actual part of the pad. Okay, so the pad is so thick, probably about maybe an inch thick. Okay, so when that goes away, when that pad goes away, it's time. Or when you see that, if you can visually see down here and see that this metal part on the outside of the shoe.
Oh yes, sir, I can see.
Okay, if it's all the way up against the rotor, it's time for new brakes. There's no doubt about that.
I would think it'd be like halfway before that.
Well, I mean, some people don't do that. Some people don't do that. Some people wait until a grinding noise and then take it to a brake mechanic, and then they...
Okay, and then that's where they have to replace the rotors and the brakes, because the brakes have gone so far thin.
Is probably a throwaway type rotor where you can't turn it, but in most auto parts, once this machine surface gets scarred, you could turn that out on a lathe.
How would you do that?
Well, I couldn't do it here because I don't have the machine to do it, but they have a specific machine that cuts these flat again, so that the brake...
But wouldn't it be better to just replace it so it's going to have the correct thickness and consistency?
Well, yeah, there are limits to how far you can turn and machine this down, but some people don't want to spend the money to grab this whole hub in here. They think it's expensive, when really in reality it's really not that expensive. It's the mechanic end of it that really gets you. It's the labor end.
Okay, so please forgive me, as a girl who is not completely familiar with car parts, How thin could that get?
They have a limit. You can only turn it down to every manufacturer is different, and it usually carries it on the hub somewhere. Of course, I don't see anywhere in the markings here where that
You
where
really
it
can't
was.
see anything.
No.
Because it's an old car.
it's rusty. But somewhere on here there's a manufacturer recommended. It says minimum and maximum dial. Okay, what that means is that how far that they could actually machine these specific plates down to and be okay and drive.
To where they would compared it to where it could be like maybe a fourth of an inch or a quarter of an inch or a half an inch to a full
something
inch.
like that. But it works in thousandths of an inch.
Oh gosh!
Yeah,
really?
yeah. This is what the machine. See, they're only taking off when they machine this, depending on how far you cut the grooves. They only machine down to the groove part and machine it flat.
What does that mean when you cut it down to the grooves?
See how this one is kind of got a more part to it. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, you can see where the brake shoes
Yeah,
are
it looks
kind of.
like an old 1970s record.
Okay, well, see now those are not cut in it. I mean, you've never damaged your brakes on this car. I can see that.
So is that basically saying that this is the marks that when I put on my brakes and this clamps down, because it clamps this way, correctly?
It clamps this way.
Yeah, so it clamps this way. So these marks are from where this brake pad pushes against this.
Yeah. See, and this shoe here has got rivets in it holding that pad on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and when the brake shoe wears to nothing but so little that the metal part of it's against it, the rivets will be exposed.
Oh, so that's why people have to have their rotors replaced because they start digging into here, and you'll see that mark
all the way
that's
around
like
it.
this, but on the other side, digging
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got good brakes.
Yeah, so you got good brakes. So what we're going to do now is we installed this. Now I'm going to put the wheels back on it, and we're going to go for a test drive, y'all.
Hey,
Huh?
welcome to Mike the Car Guy.